Now, I've recently started going to some of my local indoor ranges to test out a few handguns I am planning to buy in the next month or two. So if you're into or carry revolvers or 1911s, stay tuned. There's a lot of content coming up on those. But something interesting I've noticed, whether it's a fancy shooting range or a classic old school one, is the strict rules. As you might have seen in my previous videos or on my Instagram, most of my training has always been done here on private land, where I've had the freedom to train in all sorts of creative and safe ways over the years. Now, obviously, I've heard from my peers and people online message me telling me how they wish they can try out some of the drills I do, or at least try out certain things. But unfortunately, the range they go to doesn't allow it. And surprise, same goes for the ranges I've been using for some of my testing. Now, at first, some of these rules seemed pretty ridiculous to me, but the more time I spent at the range and really thought about them, the more they started to make sense. Now, to be clear, I am not talking about the universal firearm safety rules, the ones every indoor/outdoor range enforces, like treat a firearm as if it's loaded, never point at anything you're not willing to destroy, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, and know what's beyond your target. Though in an indoor range, the last one doesn't fully apply since the backstop's always behind your target. However, the rules I am talking about are separate from those. And I'm not sure if they're just specific to the ranges around here or if they're more widely enforced, but the one immediately caught me off guard when I walked in was you're not allowed to rent firearms if you come alone unless you bring your own or if you have someone with you. And at first I thought, wow, that's a pretty shitty rule, which keep in mind, I didn't know about this beforehand. Like I said, most if not all my training has been done here on private land, so this was a bit of a surprise. Luckily, since I already had my firearm on me, so I went back to my car, unloaded it, put it in a case, and I went back in to test out some handguns. Now, the reason I said, wow, this is a pretty shit rule, aside from the fact that if I didn't carry, I wouldn't have been able to test anything out that day, was because I started thinking about all the people this rule might turn away, especially beginners or those just getting into firearms that might want to go to the range alone and test out a few guns to see what works best for them, whether it's for concealed carry or home defense. I then later on found out the reason behind this rule, which I gotta be careful how I talk about this since YouTube isn't always fond of videos discussing this topic. But the reason this rule exists is to prevent someone from coming in alone and renting out a firearm with the intent to unalive themselves. So if someone doesn't already own a firearm and is alone, it raises concerns, which is why the rule is in place. Now, if someone brings their own firearm and wants to rent out a firearm, it is less likely that they have harmful intentions. And for those who don't own a firearm but bring someone with them, the idea behind this is that if someone did have harmful intentions, the person they brought could potentially stop or prevent them from hurting themselves. The next rule that I thought was a pretty big deal is that no one is allowed to draw from their holster, whether it's inside or outside the waistband. Now, I knew about this one because this is one of the most common messages I get, with people often saying how it sucks because, they practice their draw at home when they dry fire, but would love to put it into practice with live rounds. Now, of course, practicing your draw and dry firing is great and will definitely help you develop a proper technique to lifting your shirt and drawing safely with your finger off the trigger. Dry firing will also help you with things like trigger control and sight alignment, but I get it. Nothing compares to actually training with live rounds, which this one's understandable to why they don't allow it in indoor ranges, and it's due to the risk of an accidental discharge. Now, just because we train and we put in the reps at home doesn't mean everyone else does. There are people that believe that they can carry a firearm with little to no training and will be able to draw their firearm effectively and most importantly safely without putting their lives or the people around them in danger. Look, it's not as easy as it looks. I've been training concealed carry for about 2 years now, and even now, I have to remember to slow down and go at a pace that I am confident I will not be putting myself in harm's way when I draw my weapon from concealment. Now, there are a few ranges that allow you to get certified to draw from the holster, though I'm not entirely sure how that works. Unfortunately, the ones in my area don't do that. The next rule we often hear about is no rapid fire. Now, in a real life self-defense situation, you're not going to fire a shot and then wait 1 or 2 seconds before shooting again, especially at close distances. You're going to shoot at a pace necessary for the situation, putting as many rounds on the target until the threat is down. But there are 2 main reasons why rapid fire is often not allowed. The first is to ensure everyone, especially beginners, feel comfortable. Now, just because we're used to the sound of gunfire doesn't mean everyone else is. For first-time shooters, the sound of gunfire can be something overwhelming with their body reacting in certain ways. So I get trying to make gun ranges a place that is open for beginners. You don't want to bring someone for the first time and they have a shitty experience that they are turned away and don't ever want to fire a gun again. So this rule is meant for that. It creates a controlled environment for beginners where they can build confidence without feeling intimidated. The next reason why rapid fire isn't allowed should be pretty obvious. Just step into any indoor range and check out the side walls and ceiling. It looks like a whole Middle Eastern wedding went down in there. For some reason, when people can't hit the target, they start speeding up. Like, hey, maybe if I shoot fast enough, I'll eventually hit the target, right? No. The problem is the faster you start shooting, especially as an inexperienced shooter, the less control you have over the recoil, causing the muzzle to keep rising until eventually it starts to snow. This is another reason why you're not allowed to shoot from the hip, especially at a rapid speed, because at that point, you're not just decorating the ceiling, but you're also mopping the floor. Now, the last rule is one that I think is really important, is no horseplay. Now, I'll be honest, some of the stuff I've seen online is pretty funny, but to be clear, the videos I'm talking about do not involve anyone putting themselves or others in danger. It's usually people yelling some wild stuff while shooting.
Let me see your hands, you gorilla loving banana Kool-Aid chicken lover.
Or just messing around with the employees.
Do you mind helping me out real quick? Like, do you have any tips for like better aim? Because I'm just going for headshots today.
What are you using today?
I'm using like a 50 caliber.
Can I see your...
Yeah. My arsenal runs pretty deep because I have a homie. His name's Nico Bellic. Got the ACOG. I got the Rick Grimes special. You know, any walkers want to come up on me. And then I want to be on my Al Capone shit. I got the Tommy gun.
Gotcha, I feel you.
Which one do you think I should start off with?
Al Capone.
For me, that kind of horseplay isn't really the issue. As long as no one's getting hurt, I personally don't see it as that big of a deal. Sure, can it be annoying? Yeah, of course. And if it seems to be getting out of hand, the range could always just ask them to leave. Now, the kind of horseplay they're likely referring to is the kind that puts both the person handling the firearm and those around them in danger. We all have seen the crazy videos of people joking around thinking it would be funny to aim a firearm at their friend just for the sake of a picture. That's a serious problem. And honestly, I gotta say, I see it more often than not among younger people. For some reason, a lot of young guys always have to roll deep. And look, I get it, shooting with your boys is awesome, especially when you start training together and running drills. That stuff is dope. But the problem I see is when it's a group of young guys, they just don't seem that interested in actually training. Somehow, indoor ranges have turned into a hangout spot. Like if you're bored on a Saturday afternoon, just go to the range with your boys. And instead of training on their grip or trigger control, they're just there to shoot for the sake of it, while having their friends record and take pictures of them. And that's when you slowly start seeing reckless horseplay. And look, I don't want to be the dick who goes around telling people that they can't have fun while shooting, because you absolutely can. But it has to be done responsibly. I don't care if I have to be the one that kills the mood because a buddy of mine is flagging me or doing something reckless that is putting his life and everyone else's in danger. I'll call that shit out without hesitation. Like, hey man, what are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
So at the end of the day, indoor ranges have a lot of rules that may seem kind of stupid, but I truly believe they're there for our own safety. Sure, some of them are probably there to make a buck or two out of us, like not being allowed to pick up our own brass or, having to buy their overpriced ammo. But things like no rapid fire or not drawing from the holster, I can see how they can be a problem, especially if you're serious about training. That's why I always recommend looking for an outdoor range that lets you rent out a private bay. These are typically reserved for small groups and give you a controlled environment where you can set up targets and run different drills to your liking, and usually allow you to draw from the holster and shoot as rapidly as you want. Now, I know it's not cheap, which is why I suggest going with a few friends who are actually committed to training. Now, if that's not an option, maybe because of cost or because you live in the city, the next best thing is to call around and see if any indoor ranges offer certification programs that allow you to draw from the holster. If none of them do, then the last option is practicing at home. I get it, it's not the most exciting or, best thing as training with live rounds, but at the very least, it helps you build the muscle memory for a safe and effective draw while also practicing your trigger control. So there's really no excuse for anyone who carries not to be training, whether it's at home or at the nearest indoor range. If you carry, understand you took on the responsibility to be well equipped to handle the tools you are choosing to carry every day. So that's all I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe. Also, if you're interested in seeing some of the CCW drills I train on the land I've been blessed and fortunate enough to use, feel free to check out my Instagram at ShadowTheWicked. Also, if you want to get in contact with me, that's a great place. But other than that, hope you guys have a good weekend. Stay safe and God bless.